Complete summary of The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. First published July 1, 1988. Warning, spoilers ahead. Read to you at Booknook. Clarice Starling, a trainee at the FBI Academy, is summoned by Jack Crawford, the head of the Behavioral Science Unit, to assist in an ongoing investigation. Crawford tasks Starling with interviewing Dr. Hannibal Lecter, a brilliant psychiatrist and cannibalistic serial killer, who has been imprisoned for 8 years in the Baltimore State Hospital for the criminally insane. Starling is initially uncertain about why Crawford has chosen her for the task, but she accepts the assignment and travels to the hospital. At the hospital, Starling is introduced to Dr. Frederick Chilton, the pompous and self-important director of the facility. Chilton takes an immediate interest in Starling and attempts to flirt with her, but she rebuffs his advances. Chilton provides her with some background on Lecter, emphasizing his dangerous nature, and leads her to Lecter's cell in the high-security wing of the facility. Chilton warns Starling to avoid passing anything to Lecter or allowing him to manipulate her. He also remarks on Crawford's decision to send a young, attractive woman to meet Lecter, implying it might be a deliberate tactic. When Starling arrives at Lecter's cell, she finds him standing, calm and polite, behind a thick glass barrier. Lecter's cell is stark and immaculately kept, reflecting his meticulous nature. Starling introduces herself and explains that she is conducting a psychological profile project. Lecter initially seems indifferent to her presence and mocks the questionnaire she presents. However, he is intrigued by Starling's demeanor and background. Their interaction is tense but charged with intellectual energy. Lecter's sharp intellect and probing questions unsettle Starling, but she maintains her composure. He quizzes her about her own life, revealing his ability to dissect people's psyches with uncanny precision. When Starling presses him for insights into the investigation of Buffalo Bill, a serial killer currently being hunted by the FBI, Lecter rebuffs her and dismisses her as unworthy of his time. As Starling prepares to leave, another inmate, Miggs, hurls an obscene comment and bodily fluids at her. Lecter, offended by this behavior, calls Starling back and offers her a cryptic clue: "Look deep within yourself, Clarice." He suggests she explore a storage unit, mentioning the name Miss Hester Moffett. Starling follows Lecter's lead and investigates the storage unit he mentioned. With the help of a locksmith, she gains access to the unit, which is filled with a bizarre collection of items. Among them, she discovers a preserved human head in a jar. The head belongs to Benjamin Raspail, a former patient of Lecter's who was believed to have disappeared. This discovery confirms that Lecter possesses crucial information about Buffalo Bill. Starling reports her findings to Crawford, who recognizes the significance of Lecter's hint and authorizes her to continue interacting with him. As Starling delves deeper into the investigation, she learns more about Buffalo Bill, whose modus operandi involves abducting women, starving them, and then skinning them. The FBI is desperate to apprehend him, as his most recent victim, Catherine Martin, is the daughter of a U.S. senator. The case has garnered national attention, adding immense pressure on the Bureau to solve it quickly. Crawford encourages Starling to gain Lecter's trust and extract any information he might have about Buffalo Bill. Starling returns to Lecter, armed with the knowledge from the storage unit and determined to engage him further. Lecter is pleased by her resourcefulness and agrees to provide more information, but only if Starling reveals details about her own life. He begins a quid pro quo exchange, where he offers cryptic insights in return for personal anecdotes from Starling. This dynamic establishes a tense but mutually beneficial relationship between the two. During their conversations, Lecter probes into Starling's past, uncovering her childhood trauma. Starling reluctantly shares that she was orphaned at a young age and sent to live with relatives on a farm. One night, she awoke to the sound of lambs being slaughtered, a memory that has haunted her ever since. Lecter is fascinated by this revelation and uses it to further analyze Starling's psyche, suggesting that her drive to save Buffalo Bill's victims is rooted in her unresolved guilt and desire to silence the metaphorical lambs. Meanwhile, the investigation into Buffalo Bill intensifies. The FBI uncovers evidence linking him to the transgender community, as he appears to be creating a suit made from the skin of his victims. However, Crawford and Starling deduce that Buffalo Bill's interest in gender identity is a superficial cover for deeper psychological issues. Their insights are partially informed by Lecter's cryptic comments, which force them to think critically and creatively about the killer's motives. Starling's interactions with Lecter become increasingly charged as she attempts to extract actionable information without losing herself in his manipulations. Lecter provides subtle clues about Buffalo Bill's identity and background, but he refuses to give direct answers. Instead, he encourages Starling to see what he sees and piece together the puzzle herself. Starling grows frustrated by Lecter's games, but she also recognizes that his insights are invaluable. Clarice Starling's role becomes even more critical. The FBI is under immense pressure to solve the case due to the high-profile nature of Catherine Martin's abduction. Catherine, the daughter of U.S. Senator Ruth Martin, is held captive in Buffalo Bill's home, a deranged man who views his victims as components of his twisted masterpiece. His latest victim is imprisoned in a deep pit, terrified and desperate, as Buffalo Bill prepares for the next phase of his ritual. Starling's interactions with Dr. Hannibal Lecter deepen as she seeks his guidance to unravel Buffalo Bill's identity. However, Lecter's cooperation comes with conditions, as he demands more personal revelations from Starling. Their conversations become increasingly layered, with Lecter offering cryptic hints and riddles rather than direct answers. Despite his manipulation, Lecter begins to genuinely admire Starling's intelligence and resilience, creating a complex dynamic between them. In one of their exchanges, Lecter provides Starling with a key piece of information, a name connected to Buffalo Bill's past. He implies that the killer has a history with someone named Frederica Bimmel, a former victim whose case had gone cold. Starling investigates Frederica's background and discovers that she was a seamstress with a connection to other victims. This revelation leads Starling to hypothesize that Buffalo Bill is crafting a suit from the skin of his victims, confirming the theory that he is constructing a new identity for himself. While Starling works on these leads, Lecter's situation takes a dramatic turn. Senator Ruth Martin, desperate to save her daughter, offers Lecter a deal. If he provides the true identity of Buffalo Bill, she will arrange for him to be transferred to a more comfortable facility. Lecter, ever the master manipulator, agrees, but uses the opportunity to toy with both the senator and the FBI. He provides a false name, Lewis Friend, which is an anagram for iron sulfide or fool's gold, misleading the investigation and buying himself time. Lecter's transfer to a temporary holding facility in Memphis sets the stage for his audacious escape. While under heavy security, Lecter is granted an opulent setup in exchange for his cooperation. However, he uses this opportunity to stage a meticulously planned breakout. Exploiting his cunning intellect and medical knowledge, Lecter manipulates his guards, faking an injury to lure them close. In a gruesome display of violence, he kills the guards, disguises himself in one of their uniforms, and escapes by hiding in an ambulance. His escape shocks the FBI and leaves them scrambling to recover from the setback. Meanwhile, Starling continues to piece together the puzzle of Buffalo Bill's identity. She revisits Frederica Bimmel's hometown and interviews people who knew her. Through her investigation, she uncovers connections between Frederica and other victims, noting that all the women were larger in size before being murdered. Starling hypothesizes that Buffalo Bill specifically targets women with ample skin for his suit. This realization adds urgency to her efforts as she understands the horrifying nature of his plan. Starling also examines the psychological profile of Buffalo Bill, delving into his past and attempting to understand his motivations. The investigation reveals that Buffalo Bill, whose real name is Jane Gum, was rejected for gender reassignment surgery due to his severe psychological issues. His inability to accept his identity and his history of abuse and trauma drive his obsession with transformation, which manifests in his grotesque attempts to create a new skin for himself. Starling's deepening understanding of Buffalo Bill's psyche allows her to anticipate his moves, but she is still missing a crucial piece of the puzzle, his location. As the FBI narrows down potential suspects, Crawford oversees a raid on a house believed to belong to Buffalo Bill. The operation is highly coordinated, involving a SWAT team and local law enforcement. However, the raid turns out to be a false lead, leaving the team frustrated and no closer to finding Catherine Martin. This failure increases the pressure on Starling, who feels the weight of Catherine's life on her shoulders. Despite the setbacks, she remains determined to follow the trail Lecter has laid out for her, convinced that he has already given her the tools she needs to solve the case. Lecter's escape becomes a secondary concern for the FBI as they continue to focus on Buffalo Bill. However, his absence looms over the investigation, with the knowledge that he is free to pursue his own agenda. Starling's interactions with Lecter have left a profound impact on her, shaping her investigative approach and challenging her perceptions of morality and justice. She recognizes that Lecter, despite his monstrous nature, is a key figure in unraveling the mystery of Buffalo Bill. Starling's relentless pursuit of the truth leads her to another breakthrough. While examining Frederica Bimmel's belongings, she discovers a pattern that connects Buffalo Bill's victims. The realization that Frederica's sewing skills are a critical clue helps Starling understand that Buffalo Bill's choice of victims is not random but calculated. She identifies a geographic pattern in the victims' abductions, narrowing down the area where Buffalo Bill might be operating. As Clarice Starling continues her relentless investigation, she finds herself piecing together the final clues to identify and locate Buffalo Bill, the deranged killer holding Catherine Martin captive. Driven by the urgency of the situation and her growing understanding of Buffalo Bill's psyche, Starling delves deeper into the connections between the victims and the geographical patterns of their abductions. Her determination to save Catherine fuels her resolve, even as she faces mounting pressure from her superiors and the clock ticking on Catherine's life. Starling's meticulous work leads her to further explore Frederica Bimmel's life, uncovering more about her connections and activities before her death. While visiting Frederica's home, Starling discovers a sewing machine and patterns, which reinforce her realization that Buffalo Bill's victims were specifically chosen for their size and skin. This discovery solidifies her theory that Buffalo Bill is crafting a suit from the skins of his victims as part of his grotesque attempt at transformation. The insight energizes Starling, pushing her to examine every remaining detail from Frederica's life for any overlooked leads. In her investigation, Starling finds an old photograph of Frederica with a friend, who is later identified as James Gum, the man who would become Buffalo Bill. This discovery is pivotal, as it provides a direct connection to the killer's identity. However, the FBI remains focused on another suspect due to Lecter's earlier misdirection. While the Bureau organizes a large-scale operation to raid a house they believe belongs to Buffalo Bill, Starling follows her instincts and continues investigating the connections in Frederica's community. Starling's persistence leads her to the house of a woman who once employed Jane Gum. During their conversation, the woman mentions Gum's fascination with sewing and his tendency to skin animals, a chilling precursor to his current crimes. Starling follows this lead and eventually arrives at a seemingly ordinary house in a quiet neighborhood. Unbeknownst to her, she has found Buffalo Bill's residence. Inside the house, Catherine Martin remains trapped in a deep, dark pit, terrified but determined to survive. Catherine's presence adds a layer of tension as Starling unknowingly steps into the lair of the man she has been hunting. When Starling knocks on the door, she is greeted by James Gum, who appears calm and unassuming. As they speak, Starling notices peculiarities in the house, including the presence of a moth, which matches the species associated with Buffalo Bill's crimes. Her training and instincts sharpen, and she realizes that she is face to face with the killer. Gum, sensing that Starling has uncovered his identity, retreats into the depths of the house. Starling draws her weapon and begins a tense search of the premises, aware that Catherine's life depends on her actions. The search through Gum's house is fraught with danger. Starling moves cautiously through the cluttered and eerie rooms, finding horrifying evidence of Gum's crimes, including tools and remnants of his victims. She locates the pit where Catherine is held and reassures her that she will be rescued. However, Gum uses the labyrinthine layout of his house to his advantage, stalking Starling in the shadows. The confrontation reaches its climax in the basement, where Gum turns off the lights, plunging them into total darkness. Starling, relying on her training and intuition, navigates the pitch-black basement while Gum, equipped with night vision goggles, attempts to ambush her. The tension is palpable as Starling's breathing and movements become her only guides. Despite the overwhelming disadvantage, she manages to stay calm and focused. When Gum prepares to shoot her, Starling hears the click of his gun and reacts instinctively, firing multiple shots and killing him. The confrontation ends with Gum's death, and Starling secures the scene. With Buffalo Bill neutralized, Starling rescues Catherine Martin and ensures her safe extraction from the house. The media and public celebrate Starling as a hero, and her success in the case earns her respect and recognition within the FBI. Catherine's mother, Senator Ruth Martin, expresses her gratitude, and Starling's achievement marks a significant milestone in her career. However, the experience leaves a profound impact on her, as she grapples with the psychological toll of the investigation and her harrowing encounter with Gum. Meanwhile, Hannibal Lecter remains at large, having successfully evaded capture following his escape. In a chilling epilogue, Lecter contacts Starling via a letter, congratulating her on her success and expressing his continued interest in her life. The letter, written in Lecter's distinctive and unsettling style, serves as a reminder of his enduring presence and the complex relationship between the two. Lecter's parting words suggest that he harbors no intention of harming Starling, as he considers her a kindred spirit. Instead, he implies that he will continue his life on his own terms, leaving his whereabouts unknown. The story concludes with Starling reflecting on the events that have unfolded, including the triumph of solving the case and the unresolved enigma of Lecter's escape. While she has succeeded in bringing justice to Buffalo Bill's victims and saving Catherine Martin, the shadow of Hannibal Lecter lingers, leaving an open-ended sense of both accomplishment and unease. The dual narratives of capturing Buffalo Bill and Lecter's freedom underscore the themes of control, intellect, and the blurred lines between hunter and hunted. The end. I hope you have enjoyed this summary. If you liked it, please subscribe so I can keep uploading even more books. Also, giving me a like helps a lot. Finally, if you would like me to summarize the second book in the series or any specific book, please write me it in the comments.